Palantíri weren't just magic crystal balls. They were weapons of mass surveillance created by the greatest craftsmen in history, nearly indestructible and capable of driving their users insane. Sauron didn't conquer them through force. He broke Saruman's mind by simply showing him the truth. Denethor burned himself alive rather than face what he'd seen. And here's what the movies never told you. There were 7 of these stones scattered across Middle-earth, and most of them are still out there. The Palantíri were so powerful that their very existence changed the course of kingdoms, and understanding what they actually did versus what people think they did reveals why Sauron won before the War of the Ring even started. Let's start with their origin, because it explains everything about their power. The Palantíri, the Seeing Stones, were made in the Undying Lands during the First Age, by Fëanor himself. Yes, that Fëanor. The greatest craftsman in the history of the elves, the one who made the Silmarils, the one whose pride nearly destroyed his entire people. They were gifts from the elves of Aman to the Númenóreans, 7 stones given to the faithful who opposed Sauron. This was during the height of Númenor's power, when they were still blessed, still allies of the elves. Tolkien describes them in Unfinished Tales. The Palantíri were perfectly spherical, made of a hard, black, glass-like substance. The smaller ones were about a foot in diameter, but the larger ones much more. They weren't all the same size. The largest, the Master Stone, was at the tower of Amon Sul, which is Weathertop, and the stone at Osgiliath. These could communicate with all the others and see farther. The smallest was at the tower of Emin Bereid, and it was unique. It could only look west toward the Undying Lands, and couldn't communicate with the other stones at all. Here's what they could actually do. First, they could see across vast distances, hundreds or thousands of miles. You could observe events happening in real time anywhere within their range. Second, they could communicate with each other. If someone was using another Palantir, you could speak mind to mind, seeing and hearing each other. Third, they could look into the past. Not change it, but witness events that had occurred in their presence. Fourth, they responded to the will of the user. The stronger your mind, the more you could control what you saw. But this is where it gets dangerous. When Númenor fell, Elendil and his sons brought the 7 stones to Middle-earth. They placed them strategically across their new kingdoms. Amon Sul at Weathertop, the Master Stone. Osgiliath, the largest stone, in Gondor's capital. Minas Ithil, guarding against Mordor. Minas Anor, later called Minas Tirith, paired with Ithil. Orthanc in Isengard. Annúminas, capital of Arnor. And Emin Bereid, looking only west. For over 1,000 years, these stones allowed the kingdoms of Gondor and Arnor to communicate instantly, to watch their borders, to coordinate defense. They were the communication network that held the realms together. Then Sauron made his move. In the year 2002 of the Third Age, Sauron's forces captured Minas Ithil. The city fell, and Sauron took the Palantir. This is the moment everything changed, because Sauron now controlled one of the stones. And here's what most people don't understand. The Palantíri can't lie. They show truth. But Sauron could control what truth you saw. When someone looked into a Palantir, if Sauron was watching through his stone, he could force them to see only what he wanted them to see. Overwhelm their will with his own. Show them selective truths designed to break their spirit. Plant suggestions that felt like their own thoughts. He couldn't make the stones show falsehoods, but he could curate reality so perfectly that the truth became a lie. Saruman's corruption is the perfect example of how the Palantíri could be weaponized. Saruman had the Orthanc stone, It was his by right as the head of the White Council and the Lord of Isengard. He used it to watch Mordor, to spy on Sauron, to stay informed. He thought he was being clever, but every time he looked into the stone, Sauron was there, waiting, watching, showing him things. Tolkien explains in Unfinished Tales that Sauron didn't corrupt Saruman through lies or threats. He corrupted him through hope. He showed Saruman the vastness of his armies, the inevitability of his victory, the futility of resistance. But then, and this is brilliant, he showed Saruman a path to survival. Submit, join, rule as his lieutenant. And here's the cruelest part. Saruman thought he was deceiving Sauron. He believed he could pretend to serve while secretly planning to take the ring for himself. He thought he was playing both sides. He never realized that Sauron knew exactly what he was thinking. The Palantir is a two-way window. While Saruman was watching Mordor, Sauron was watching Saruman's mind, his fears, his ambitions, his pride. And Sauron fed those weaknesses until Saruman became his tool. By the time of the War of the Ring, Saruman was essentially Sauron's puppet, even though he still believed himself independent. The Palantir had broken him so subtly, he didn't even know he was broken. Denethor's story is even more tragic, because he was stronger-willed than Saruman. The steward of Gondor had the Palantir of Minas Tirith. He used it in secret for years. No one knew, not even his sons. He used it to watch Mordor, to gather intelligence, to stay ahead of Sauron's plans. And for years, it worked. Denethor was incredibly strong-willed. Gandalf says of him, "He has long sight. He can perceive, if he bends his will thither, much of what is passing in the minds of men. He is not as other men of this time. By some means the knowledge of many things came to him. Denethor could resist Sauron's will. He could look into the stone and not be dominated. But here's what destroyed him. Sauron didn't need to dominate him. He just needed to show him the truth. Sauron showed Denethor his armies, the fleets of Umbar, the Haradrim from the south, the Easterlings from Rhûn, all of it real, all of it true. Overwhelming force marching on Gondor. And then Sauron made sure Denethor couldn't see certain things. He couldn't see Aragorn taking the paths of the dead. He couldn't see the fleet being captured. He couldn't see hope. What broke Denethor wasn't lies. It was selective truth. He saw Faramir struck down. He saw the armies of Mordor surrounding Minas Tirith. He saw the inevitability of defeat. All true, but incomplete. In his final moments, Denethor reveals what the Palantir did to him. "I have seen more than thou knowest, grey fool, for thy hope is but ignorance. Go then and labor in healing. Go forth and fight. Vanity. For a little space you may triumph on the field, for a day. But against the power that now arises there is no victory. The West has failed. He saw the truth, but not the whole truth. And it destroyed him. Here's what makes the Palantíri truly terrifying. They're nearly indestructible. When Pippin looked into the Orthanc stone, he saw Sauron. The experience nearly killed him, not from any attack, but from the sheer weight of Sauron's will pressing down on his mind. Gandalf explains, "The stones of seeing do not lie, and not even the Lord of Barad-dûr can make them do so. He can, maybe, by his will, choose what things shall be seen by weaker minds, or cause them to mistake the meaning of what they see. Nonetheless, it cannot be doubted that when Denethor saw great forces arrayed against him in Mordor, and more still being gathered, he saw that which truly is. Cannot lie. This is their greatest power and greatest danger. In a world of deception and uncertainty, the Palantíri show truth. But truth without context is manipulation. And here's the thing. After the War of the Ring, At least 4 Palantíri remain. The Orthanc stone, recovered by Aragorn, becomes a tool for him to challenge Sauron directly, showing incredible will. The Anor stone, still in Minas Tirith, eventually used by King Aragorn to watch his realm. The Ithil stone, captured by Sauron, its fate unknown, but possibly destroyed when Barad-dûr fell, or lost in the ruins. The Elostirion stone at the Tower of Emin-Bereid, looking only west toward Valinor. The others, the Amon-Sul stone, lost when the tower was destroyed. The Osgiliath stone, which fell into the Anduin during the Kinstrife Civil War. The Anúminas stone, lost when the kingdom of Arnor fell. But those lost stones, they can't be destroyed by normal means. They're still out there somewhere, in rivers, in ruins, waiting to be found. And if someone found one and didn't know what it was, didn't know how to resist, Sauron might be defeated. But imagine if someone stumbled upon the Ithil stone in the ruins of Mordor centuries later. The malice Sauron poured into it would still be there, waiting. The Palantíri represent something crucial in Tolkien's work: the danger of knowledge without wisdom. They don't corrupt through evil magic. They corrupt through information, through showing you more than you can handle, through giving you the truth, but not the whole truth, through connecting you to minds greater and more terrible than your own. Saruman fell because he thought he was clever enough to use them safely. Denethor fell because he thought he was strong enough to handle what they showed. Both were wrong, not because they were weak, but because the Palantíri connected them to something beyond mortal comprehension, the will and vision of Sauron himself. The movies showed them as spooky magic balls that show visions, but they were so much more. They were technology from a vanished age, surveillance systems that could watch across thousands of miles, communication devices that allowed instant contact across continents, and weapons that could break the strongest minds. Aragorn uses one successfully, but only because he has the will of Númenor's greatest kings and the right to contest Sauron directly through his bloodline. Even Gandalf refuses to look into them. He knows that some tools are too dangerous to use, no matter how powerful you are. The Palantíri prove that in Tolkien's world, knowledge and power aren't solutions. They're burdens. And those who reach for them without understanding the cost pay the price. Somewhere in Middle-earth, those lost stones still exist, still seeing, still waiting, still dangerous.